Good evening. Hello, I'm Mayor Erica A. Stewart, and I'm here to call the regular meeting of the City Council to order and state that all of the City Council members are here in person. So today, we'll go ahead and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you can, stand. Well, before we kick off the rest of the council meeting, I just want to say a big thank you to all of the staff at the city, the police department, our mutual aid law enforcement that came out for St. Patrick's Day, our collaboration and partnership with Cal Poly. While there were still, many people having a very festive time, it was not in the middle of the neighborhoods all morning long, and I very much appreciate all of the collaboration in the planning that took. So just big thank you. Well, today we get to do what we often do, which is celebrate other people. And one of the ways we'll do that today is through a proclamation for Ramadan. As we are in America, it is wonderful that we have the freedom of faith and the freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and I'm excited to be able to share this. So we'll share this proclamation, and then I will meet Dr. Asal down at the podium, and you may share 3 minutes of information if you wish to. So, whereas Ramadan is observed by community members of San Luis Obispo who practice the Islamic faith, Ramadan started on March 1st and ends on March 30th and is celebrated annually by millions of Muslims throughout the United States and over 1 billion Muslims across the world. During Ramadan, Muslims fast from dawn to sunset, engaging in acts of self-reflection, spiritual growth, community service, and embodying the values of compassion, generosity, and unity. The city of San Luis Obispo is a diverse community that values and celebrates the rich cultural and religious heritage of its residents. The Muslim community in San Luis Obispo has made significant contributions to the local economy, education, healthcare, and social services, enriching the fabric of our community. It is fitting to recognize and honor the contributions and traditions of our Muslim neighbors and friends. Whereas Islamic traditions and values provide balance and peace and serve as an inspiration and reflection for the millions of individuals who look to the teachings of Islam for guidance. And now, therefore, I, Erica A. Stewart, Mayor of the City of San Luis Obispo, on behalf of the entire City Council, proclaim March 1st through March 30th as Ramadan in the City of San Luis Obispo.
So Honorable Mayor, esteemed City Council members, distinguished guests, and community members, it's with a great pleasure and appreciation that I stand before you today receiving the Ramadan proclamation on behalf of the Muslim community. This recognition is more than just an acknowledgement of the sacred month for the Muslims. It's a reflection of the inclusive spirit that defines our great city of San Luis Obispo. It reaffirms that we are a community that values diversity, coexisting, and mutual respect, where people of different backgrounds can practice their faith freely and contribute to the shared prosperity of our beautiful San Luis Obispo. We also would like to share with the community and the City Council what our Holy Book says about this notion of acceptance and diversity and getting to know one another. So God says in the Holy Quran, in one of the verses, "O humanity, indeed we created you from a male and a female and made you into peoples and tribes so that you may get to know one another. Surely the most noble of you in the sight of God is the most righteous among you. God is truly all-knowing and all-aware." Also, God says in the Holy Quran, if God had willed, he would have made you one community, but his will is to test you with what he has given each of you. So compete with one another in doing good. To God you will all return. So this is the spirit of Islam in acknowledging that we are beautiful as a diverse community, and that diversity is a strength, not a challenge. And I'd like also to maybe say a couple of things about Ramadan, that it's not just basically a refraining from eating and drinking from dawn to sunset, but it's a spiritual renewal and self-discipline and deep reflection, where we Muslims in this month, we get together as families, we extend our breakfast with our friends and neighbors, and we build bridges of understanding and get people to know about Muslims. I always tell my students at Cal Poly, I'm a professor at Cal Poly also, that please hear about us, not from us. Hear about Muslims from Muslims. Get to know them by engaging with them and getting to speak to them. Because we are living in a time where a lot of false information are being circulated around. And hopefully this will be a time where we can, again, share these values of respect, inclusion, and unity, especially at a time where we are questioning basic human principles and ethics locally and globally. And it's times and moments like Ramadan is a great opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to this human ethical compass of acceptance, diversity, unity, and standing with one another just because we are humans. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I love the let's compete to doing good. That's really something that struck me, so thank you so much. Well, with that, we will move forward to the business of the city. And so Assistant City Manager Scott Collins will provide the City Manager report.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart and council members. Scott Collins, Assistant City Manager, sitting in for Whitney McDonald, the city manager, who fell ill today. So we'll jump ahead to the St. Patrick's Day holiday response briefing, and just want to echo the comments from our mayor about the outstanding collaboration and teamwork and effort put in by the city and our partners at Cal Poly and throughout the law enforcement allied agencies to ensure we had a safe weekend. So with that, I'd like to bring up Police Chief Rick Scott to give the briefing. Thank you.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager, and good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. It's really good to be in front of you tonight. It always is, but tonight it's especially good. So here, I'll be brief because I know we have some other slides to get through, but just want to say a few words about our response for the event on the 15th for St. Patrick's Day weekend. Most of our context will be just focused on the 15th as our data is still coming into the police department. This year, it was over unbelievable success based on all the metrics that we had going into the event. It looked different. It felt different, and it certainly was different for our community as well as our student community in those areas celebrating. Our overarching goal going into the weekend was safety, as it always is, but ensuring specifically that our roadways stayed open, that our neighborhoods stayed clear of traffic and people, and that we maintained civility. That was really the markers that we looked for specifically this year. We had a tremendous outpouring of support, not only from our community and what we were trying to do, from our regional law enforcement partners, and then partners all across the state that stepped up this year to help accomplish what we want to do in this mission. And then I'll talk a little bit more about Cal Poly and really their amazing partnership and all that they did on campus, but it was most notable specifically in our results this year. Some of the outcomes I want to go over briefly. We had 4 arrests. Those were related to public intoxication. 40 citations total, but 20 of those were on the city or for the city. The other 20 were our ABC partners, alcohol beverage commission folks that were out there doing that work and assisting us. Much lower than last year. And so going into this event, we had hoped that our metrics, weren't geared on citations and arrests, that we would actually have lower numbers and less incidents, and that actually proved to be true. So we're very, very fortunate that we had as few arrests and citations that we did. Part of the lower activity we also believe was in part to our communications out early and proactive with our community. And Cal Poly stood with us in partnership in getting that message out broadly and sternly in some regards to make sure that people got the point of what it was going to look like this year, and then that everybody would be held accountable. And so we were very, very grateful in their proactive messaging as well. As I wrap up, just want to say a few thanks. Deputy Chief Michael and Lieutenant Dickel were first and foremost. They were the ones, they're the boots on the ground. They did the planning, reached out to all of our partners, and really had a cohesive plan that we could get behind and actually execute in a meaningful way with positive results. Our own SLO City Fire stepped up with us in partnership with their resources in the field just in case, which we really appreciated. Our IT department, our Public Works department, Parks and Rec, CHP, I mean, you name it, the list is every single element of our city and our region had a part to play, and they all did a phenomenal job. Specifically want to say thank you again to Cal Poly for all the pre-planning and efforts, ASI, as well as the Greek and student leadership. This would not have been possible without their support. It really would not have. So we can't say enough good things about the students that partnered with us in having a safe weekend, enjoying the alternative event, and being just really good and respectful neighbors to the rest of our community. And finally, just my thanks to you, Madam Mayor, members of council, and our amazing city manager, who was up at 1 o'clock in the morning, stayed with us in the EOC the entire time, mainly providing each of you very, very important critical updates so that you were informed. But again, thank you for your support and your trust in the department, that we would do all that we could to have a much safer event this year. And I'm proud to say that, that we've done that. So very, very thankful. I'm happy to provide any answers to some questions that you may have. And again, we'll come back with a much more in-depth briefing when the final numbers come in.
I do have one question, but Assistant City Manager, did you want to add to that? No, okay. I know that many people have asked about the cost. I know the response, but if you could share that publicly, I think that'd be great.
Yes, so costs are still coming in, but we're very, very fortunate, at least this year, with many of the costs were in-kind contributions from our local law enforcement professionals. So we had individuals come as far as Ventura up to San Francisco, and they came to our emergency assistance. And so that's a mutual aid request, and we don't necessarily get billed for those staff hours. It's not to say in the future that arrangement won't be the same, because we're hoping to make a difference that we don't have this in the future. But for our own cost, our early estimates are about $75,000. Most of that is staff, so about $55,000 is the staff time that we put into the 15th. And then there was about $20,000 in equipment to support the event. Again, those are very preliminary. We know we'll have more costs as we factor in St. Patrick's Day proper. And then, of course, we were very active the Friday before the 15th. So there'll be a few more costs layered onto that, but we'll probably hover around $100,000. That is not uncommon. That's generally what we do spend for St. Patrick's Day every year.
Thank you, appreciate it. Any other questions? Okay, we'll move forward. City Manager.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, moving on to the next item. So today, March 18th, is Transit Employee Appreciation Day, when we recognize and celebrate the hardworking people who keep our community moving, literally, from bus operators to maintenance workers, dispatchers to customer service staff, and everyone behind the scenes that are the backbone of our SLO transit system. Rain or shine, early mornings to late nights, they show up with dedication, ensuring that people can get to work, school, and home safely every day. On behalf of the city, we want to thank TransDev, who is our contractor that provides the staff who drive the SLO transit routes every day, as well as maintain the SLO Transit's fleet of buses, as well as our regional transportation partners at RTA and SLOCOG. Thank you for your commitment and the services that keep our city moving forward. On to the next item. So new gates are coming in this week at 842 Palm Garage. I know people are really excited about that. Construction is wrapping up this week, we hope. Components included new gates, kiosk, booth wrap, and signage to replace the previous gateless system. Everything should be complete again by the end of this week or early next week. The garage continues to remain open during this time, but we do encourage people to watch for changes in traffic control at the entrances and exits. With the new system, visitors will once again pay for the parking session at the end of their visit, and it will offer multiple payment options, including a walk-up kiosk, contactless cell phone payment, such as Apple or Android Pay, or paying right at the gate when you leave. New gated technology will ensure efficient operation on the garage via license plate recognition so that payment can be made prior to exit, either at the walk-up pay station via phone or permit holders, and will be tied to your vehicle's plates. So even if you forget your ticket, which does happen, you'll still be able to exit because of the license plate reader component. Garage permit holders will be able to access 842 Palm Garage with the same permit card they currently possess. Additional parking staff will be present to engage with visitors and inform them about the new system and answer any questions during the first few weeks that follow completion. We do greatly encourage feedback during this time so that the refinements can be made before implementing the system in the other 2 garages later this year. So staff plans to have an open survey during the first few months at 842 Palm Garage to see if there are even more ways to make this a more convenient parking experience for everyone. And on the parking theme, we are consolidating to one pay-by-phone mobile app system for our on-street parking. So on that note, the community may have seen signage updates downtown, including added signage to promote the use of the city's single mobile payment app called Pay by Phone. Signage for the other apps are being taken down. Additional promotion for the Pay by Phone app scheduled for later this month and next month includes a press release, a business toolkit, so that downtown business partners can notify their customers and employees of the mobile app at booths at the farmers market, and creation of an educational rack card that can go under a windshield and accompany a warning rather than a ticket, social media posts, and other advertisement opportunities. Pay by Phone also offers promotional opportunities directly for businesses to buy coupons or incentives for their customers. Once these features are up and running, staff will host a downtown business lunch and learn for businesses to learn about this exciting opportunity. And just as a reminder that the 2 other previously supported apps, Honk and Park Mobile, will still be accepted as payment during this transition to solely using the Pay by Phone app. And staff will be monitoring the app usage and will keep the other 2 apps active until a minimum of 80% of mobile payment transactions are made via Pay by Phone. Got it? Okay. All right. On to the upcoming agenda items for the April 1st, 2025 meeting. That is not a joke. It is actually going to be April 1st, not April Fools. For the consent, we will have the minutes, of course, from this meeting, confirmation of our annual advisory board appointments, the general plan annual report, and then the second reading of the ordinance related to ADUs. Next, and then on to the business items for April 1st, or actually more consent items, I should say. Second reading of the ordinance for restated solid waste recycling organics franchise agreement. Second reading of the ordinance to amend the SLO municipal code to modify collection of delinquent solid waste collection and disposable accounts, and authorize the utilities department to apply for a 2024-2025 integrated waste management, or IWMA, technical assistance grant. And then finally, the public hearing and business items, Broadstone Village initiation, and then the 600 Tank Farm Road development modification review. And that wraps up the city manager report. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a quick question, I think.
Hopefully it's not on parking.
It is, it
Of
is. So at one point when we were in the zones with Park Mobile, we had talked about painting the zones on the curbs, so because we don't have the posts anymore that it used to hold the parking meters. And I was curious, with the pay by phone, will we do that? Because sometimes you park and you can't see the zone around you, so how do you know where it is and what that number is to quickly punch that into your app and move on?
That was a wonderful question for our Public Works Director, Matt Horn. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I I think we're in a trial and error stage still, and so as we move to the one app system, we'll implement that. If we're still having zone issues, we can paint stuff on the sidewalk or put some more stickers up. I think really in the downtown, I think one of the things that we're combating is the over signage of many different things, and so just not having too much information out there. But as we implement the one app solution, if we're still having confusions about zones, we can definitely mark them in some appropriate way.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions? Vice Mayor?
Don't quite sit down yet. I have a feeling this one's for you because it's about parking also. With the change in the PALM structure from gateless to gated, is that, I know that the construction I think started last week for that to put in the gates. Is it effective immediately, or when will that new system actually be used by customers?
We're targeting next week, but we're doing a soft transition. So as we implement the new parking system, the gated system will be obviously up and visible to everyone, but we'll have a bunch of parking ambassadors out there to help people work through it. I think it's going to be a big transition for that current parking structure, going from gated to gateless, and we'll be there to assist people along the way.
Great, I'm glad to hear about the ambassadors, because I know that when we switched to gateless, it was very confusing, and the ambassadors really helped with handing out flyers and helping people punch in their codes on the machine to pay for their parking and all of that. So I'm glad to hear that we're doing that again to ease the transition back.
Having a friendly face out there to help is always wonderful. So.
Yes.
That's huge, thank you. I've heard many, many positive comments on that, so thank you for having the helpers out there. Sometimes people, it's their first time ever. We had someone for the advisory body interviews, she'd never parked in our city the entire time she'd been here for the three years. So it's helpful. Anything else, City Manager? Sorry. Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for also sharing the upcoming agenda items. I know that sometimes it gets a little wonky up there on the slides, so appreciate you giving a little bit more information. So with that, our next step is public comment. So if you are here for something that is not on the agenda and you'd like to share a public comment, this is the time to make sure, if you haven't already, turn in a slip of paper to our city clerk, and we'll make sure we get your public comment in. City clerk, do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
Okay, then we'll move right on to the consent agenda. So the consent agenda is for things that are typically not controversial. So do my colleagues have any questions or wish to pull anything from the consent agenda? I'm not seeing anything. Anyone? Okay, so then I'll poll for public comment on the consent agenda items. Anything, City Clerk?
No, we have none.
Okay, moving forward then, do we have a motion? Vice Mayor? Or sorry, City Council Francis. Councilmember Francis. Let's try that again.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Wonderful. Vice Mayor Schwarzman.
I'll second that.
Great. City Clerk, can we have roll call?
Councilmember Francis,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schwarzman,
Yes.
Councilmember Marks,
Yes.
Councilmember Boswell,
Yes.
Mayor Stewart.
Yes, and the motion passes 5-0. And I have to say, and all the things that are on there, I found the AMI smart readers very interesting to measure what our water consumption is within the city, and that this will become a more automated process should be something I think kind of interesting for our analysis, but also understanding as individuals how we use our water. So thank you. So moving forward, we get to hear from the Utilities Department, and we'll be discussing waste, solid waste, recycling, and organics. And we have the amendments to section 8.04.070 of the Muni Code. And I believe Director Floyd, you'll kick this off.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Aaron Floyd, your Utilities Director, and I'm joined this evening by Meg Buckingham, who is our Solid Waste and Recycling Manager. Also joined in the audience by Rochelle Paris, who is our Solid Waste and Recycling Coordinator. We have 2 items for you this evening, so I'll go ahead and introduce everyone that will be here, and we'll kind of talk about how we're going to go through that. We're also going to be joined on the phone or by Zoom, I believe, by Garth Schultz from R3 if there's questions that arise during the 2 hearings on rates. And we have an entire row behind me with Jeff Claren and members of San Luis Garbage, Waste Connections folks back there too, so if there's any questions of the hauler on this. So when we were last here, it was January 21st, and on that night, we asked council, we recommended and council approved the release of the 218 notification that went out to the community. So tonight is a follow-up on that, but there's actually 2 items in front of you tonight, and they're really overlapping. There's a lot of Venn diagram overlap on this one. So item 6A is the franchise agreement, but that actually has a lot of implications on the rates that would follow that. So item 6B. So we're going to go through the 2 separate hearings, but there will be a lot of overlap between the 2. So if we feel that we're a little light on something, it might be because we're picking up more on the rate side when we get into that conversation, but we can answer questions as we go through it, however is easier for council. But there will be 2, so if it feels a little sparse, a little heavy on franchise at first, and then we move into rates, that's the reason behind that. So with that, I will be asking Meg to please present on item 6A, the restated solid waste franchise agreement.
There we go. Thank you. So good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. As Director Floyd mentioned, my name is Meg Buckingham, and I am the Solid Waste Recycling Program Manager. And happy Global Recycling Day today. So as Director Floyd mentioned, we have 2 public hearing items tonight for the consideration. One for the restated franchise agreement with San Luis Garbage Company, and then following will be the public hearing for the proposed 2025 integrated solid waste rates. So the first item before you is the introduction of 2 ordinances related to restating the solid waste recycling and organics franchise agreements with San Luis Garbage Company. One restating the agreements into one discarded materials agreement and the other to amend the city's municipal code, modifying the frequency of collecting delinquent solid waste rates. It should have been shared. Is it not shared? How about now? Okay, thank you. All right. Perfect. All right, and then the second, the city's municipal code, modifying the frequency of collecting delinquent solid waste collection and disposal accounts. So to provide high-level background that led us to the items tonight, so solid waste collection services are required for community health and safety, as well as compliance with state laws. The city's solid waste recycling and organics collection and disposal operations are contracted to Waste Connections, who does business as San Luis Garbage Company, or SLG, and are funded through solid waste rates. Rates historically are set by utilizing the rate-setting process and methodology manual for integrated solid waste rates, which was created in 1994. The city's solid waste and recycling franchise agreements expire in August of 2025, whereas the organics agreement doesn't expire until 2038. Staff introduced restating the franchise agreements into one combined discarded materials agreement and setting 2025 integrated solid waste rates at the January 21st, 2025 City Council meeting, and received direction to perform a noticing process at least 45 days before this public hearing in compliance with Proposition 218. The city holds 3 franchise agreements with SLG for the collection, transportation, and disposal of solid waste, recycling, and organic materials. All 3 agreements were renewed in 2010 with a 15-year term with an expiration year of 2025. However, in 2015, the organics agreement was amended to add additional language to include food waste as an organic material and to approve a 20-year extension to commence once construction of the Compo-Gas Slow anaerobic digestion facility was completed, previously owned by and referred to as the Hitachi Zosen Innova facility. Construction of the facility was complete in 2018, which initiated the 20-year extension of the organics agreement to 2038. The solid waste and recycling agreements maintain their original 15-year renewal from 2010 and will expire in August 2025. SLG submitted their application for the 2025 rates using the 1994 manual, and a third-party solid waste management consultant, R3 Consulting Group, was hired to develop a new methodology and use it to develop the 2025 rates. The new methodology is included as an exhibit within the new proposed franchise agreement, and the 2025 rates will be considered for adoption later this evening during a public hearing. Staff and SLG leveraged the timing of the rate application timeline and expiring franchise agreements to negotiate a new combined solid waste recycling and organics franchise agreement into one discarded materials agreement, which includes service improvements for ratepayers. And as I mentioned, on January 21st, staff introduced the details of the new franchise agreement and proposed rates and received direction to set a public hearing date of March 18th. Council also adopted a resolution of intent to restate the franchise agreements. If approved tonight, the second reading of the franchise agreement ordinance will be held on April 1st for final consideration and adoption. In the last year and a half, staff and SLG participated in good faith negotiations to restate the solid waste recycling and organics franchise agreements into one discarded materials agreement and incorporate more service enhancements for city residents, as well as implement changes to help the garbage company continue to provide safe and reliable collection and disposal services. Many of the enhancements were customer requests or driven by customer complaints, and feedback was collected from customers during outreach and community events. So these enhancements include a customer assistance program offering a 20% discount to eligible low-income residential customers enrolled in 19, 32, or 64-gallon cart service. The eligibility requirements will be the same as the city's current water and sewer customer assistance program, and current customers on that program will be notified of this new offering. Free bulky and large item collection. There is currently no free option for customers to discard large or bulky items such as furniture or large appliances. To reduce illegal dumping and encourage proper disposal of materials, single-family customers may schedule up to 3 no-cost collections a year, and multifamily customers may schedule up to 12. Some of these scheduled collections must occur during the 2 semi-annual cleanup weeks offered by SLG, and the others may be scheduled at any time during the year. Residents in multifamily properties that are enrolled in bin or dumpster service and do not have cart service with a curb will continue to work with the property managers to schedule their bulky item collection similar to how they do now. Property managers can communicate with their tenants about the remaining number of free large item pickups. 1 annual cart exchange for residential customers for any of the trash, recycling, or organics carts due to cleanliness, odor, or damage. If a cart is broken due to normal wear and tear or from servicing, it will also be replaced at no cost and will not count towards the no-cost exchange. No-cost curbside collection of holiday trees. Currently, customers must cut up their holiday tree and place it in the green bin with no overage. However, this program would allow whole trees with no stands, ornaments, or flocking to be placed on the curb for collection for 2 weeks following Christmas Day. Similar to the bulky item procedure, customers in multifamily locations with bin service or space constraints can work with their property manager or the garbage company to schedule a day, time, and location for the collection. No-cost collection of illegally dumped items on sidewalks or in the public right-of-way. This excludes hazardous materials. SLG and the city currently has a great partnership, and they provide this service at no cost, but this language will now be formalized into the franchise agreement. No-cost collection and disposal for up to 12 community or cleanup events. This can include events hosted by the city or for roll-off containers for large cleanup events. And then lastly, less frequent public hearings to authorize delinquent fees be placed on the property tax roll to no more than every 5 years or when delinquent accounts exceed $50,000, whichever is sooner. This change requires a municipal code update, which currently directs this process to occur annually. And this proposed municipal code change is introduced as a recommended ordinance amendment during tonight's public hearing. So as mentioned, within tonight's ordinance introduction, staff are introducing a proposed change to Municipal Code Section 8.04.070 titled Use of Disposal Service, Mandatory Collection of Charges, which currently identifies a process for the City Council to hold a public hearing to consider adoption of a resolution in accordance with applicable law directing the San Luis Obispo County Auditor to place amounts due on delinquent accounts as liens against the properties on an annual basis. The proposed change loosens the annual requirement, allowing the city and SLG to perform this process less frequently. The proposed change also offers more clarity on statutory requirements associated with noticing customers. Meanwhile, the franchise agreement section defining this process offers more stringent guidelines that the process would occur no more than every 5 years or when the total amount of combined delinquent charges reaches $50,000. Keeping the franchise agreement stricter ensures that future adjustments to the timeline or dollar threshold could be done during future franchise agreement amendments, such as amendments directed by state law, and wouldn't also require changing the municipal code. Throughout the term of the current franchise agreements and while attending local community events, staff monitored customer satisfaction from community members and local businesses via complaints on services. Staff gathered feedback related to customer satisfaction and requested enhancements from stakeholders were considered and many incorporated during negotiations. Additionally, to continue cultivating a strong partnership with SLG, they requested a few additional changes be incorporated into the restated agreement to assist with the public health, safety, and efficiency of their operations. Early collection time. SLG currently provides residential collection service after 6:30 a.m. in accordance with the city's municipal code. They have requested the city allow residential collection service to start 30 minutes earlier in high-traffic areas in an effort to eliminate encounters with pedestrian traffic. This request would change the collection time to be more consistent with other cities in the county, but is not a part of the recommendation this evening, as it requires further analysis to identify the actual effects on residential customers. Staff will identify the potential impacts and may return to council at a later date with a developed recommendation to update the municipal code. In the meantime, SLG will continue to provide services per the requirements set forth in the municipal code. Growth cap on sidewalk litter containers. SLG currently provides no-cost collection and disposal services for all sidewalk and bus stop litter containers. They requested capping the number of services, allowing 10% more services at no additional cost, and any additional service levels would become a paid service. So next steps, if approved at tonight's public hearing, the second reading of the franchise agreement ordinance with the service enhancements and the recommended change to the municipal code to reduce the frequency of the lien process will be on the council agenda for the April 1st, 2025 council meeting. Service enhancements, including enrollment in the customer assistance program, will not be available before this date if approved. And with that, I open up to any questions.
Thank you. It's a lot of mouthfuls to say in some of these titles, so thank you very much. I also really want to say thank you to yourself and your team and to SLG for all of the negotiations back and forth. I really appreciate the service enhancements that have been brought forth too. One of the questions that I know I've talked to you about is the holiday tree for multifamily units. It seems as though there's some conversation now that people can talk to their property management or the SLG. Really, how will the community know they even have that ability is my main question, because I know that people use paper less, so their bills coming to their house less. So how will people know that this is an option they can do?
Thank you so much for that question and the opportunity for me to share, because with all these negotiated service enhancements, we want our community to know. We're so excited and passionate about what we were able to negotiate with our partners at SLG. So a part of that, as you mentioned, paper bills are coming a lot less often, so we're getting more creative with our outreach efforts. And in that, we do a lot of social media posts. We work with our communications team, and we are on Instagram, Nextdoor, Facebook, and we boost a lot of those posts. Additionally, around the holiday time or when these service enhancements would really take effect, we are sending emails a lot of the times through the garbage company. They have a really great refined list of current customer accounts and the email addresses associated, where they've allowed us to work with them to send emails to all these customers as well. In addition, we're very active at Farmers Market. Additionally, this just in, the garbage company has hired on a new role, and it's their government relations coordinator or their outreach coordinator. And I've been able to work with this individual at the garbage company already on numerous speaking occasions. And we've developed a great partnership of going to chamber events or going to different events in the community. And I get to talk the city side and what the city is doing with waste management. And Zach, the current outreach coordinator, gets to talk about what they are doing within the garbage company. It's brought a really great face to the services that are being offered and the partnership between the city and the garbage company. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great information. And then the slide, I don't know, maybe 3 slides back about the less frequent community engagement, but also more clear public noticing. Could you maybe I think it's a little bit, one more back, sorry. More back. Further back than I thought, sorry. Keep going, keep going. It had like two on there. Oh, well, thank you, that one. So could you help explain that a little bit more around, it sounds kind of confusing. It sounds as though we're going to have less opportunity for the public to have access, but yet it'll be more clear. So therefore, they'll have more because it's more clear. So just wanted to kind of have more clarity on that.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to clarify. So the less frequent public hearing process is really an opportunity for the city to have less frequent public hearing processes to direct the county to place the amounts of delinquent solid waste fees on the property tax roll. We identified that this frequency of an annual basis was pretty frequent in coming to council every year as a public hearing and having a list of customers in the community who for various reasons were not able to pay their bill. So when I'm mentioning more clear noticing and process requirements, I'm referring to in the municipal code itself. It's currently, the process is pretty vague on the noticing that we're providing the community. How many days are we sending that public notice, allowing that community member to pay their bill? And this is a statutory requirement. This lien process is within the Public Resources Code. So what we've done is we have mirrored the Public Resources Code within our municipal code in the draft version to show the community, you will have this many days to pay the bill once you receive that mailed notice. Then we will be going to our city council with the public hearing process. Then, if approved, we'll be going to the county. So that's what I mean by a more clear process is the community will know exactly the processes that we're taking to collect those fees.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. I remember receiving those lists and it felt very awkward that some people didn't necessarily even know they were on the list and then it came publicly. So I appreciate that. All right, thank you for now, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. My question kind of relates to that same thing. So if I'm understanding correctly, and I guess this is just to clarify a little bit further, right now the municipal code says there will be an annual public hearing process, correct? And what you're doing now is you're modifying the code to outline that clearer process of notification and timing, but leaving it open to say that it's at the discretion of staff and the hauler by coordination, or how is it becoming more flexible so that we can only do it, or we have the option of doing it when there's $50,000 worth of fees or 5 years?
Yep, exactly. So within the municipal code, it will say that it would be at a frequency agreed upon by the city and the garbage company. And then where it gets more strict is within the franchise agreement, where it does identify the 5 years or the $50,000. And that is to really maintain that partnership with the garbage company, that the city will participate in that process at a certain point.
Okay, thank you, because I know my questions earlier in advance were about the language in the ordinance and how it needed to be changed or not changed, so I appreciate that clarification. Also had a question similar to the Christmas tree question, I guess, in a way. The bulky items, you know, if you live in a multifamily complex, which we are seeing more and more of, and there are a limited number of these opportunities that you can take advantage of a year, how will that be sort of maneuvered by a property that has 5, 10 or more units that may want to use this benefit?
Yeah, so this was just a discussion point of how many do we offer the community. We have multifamilies that have 5 units, but then we also have multifamilies that have 100 units. So the 12 number was negotiated as a a number that we would anticipate the customers within the property would work with their property managers, and it would be the proper property manager's responsibility to educate the residents on how many they have remaining. With any kind of communication style that they have with their tenants is we have this many free in the city, and the different properties can decide how they want to do that. Is it a first come first serve opportunity? Do they sign up and it's a lottery system? So we really are going to make it up to the property itself if they do have more customers than that 12 amount. And like anything, this is a pilot program. So we're going to assess success, and we're going to see if we really do get customer feedback of we need more than the 12. We're seeing an influx of illegal dumping at our enclosures. So we would really appreciate discussing that number. Or maybe conversely, we see that it's not being utilized, and how do we get that message out and work with property owners to let their residents know?
Thank you, appreciate that.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Marks.
Thank you, and thanks for a very concise and action-packed report. How does this apply to, again, talking about the large items, how does it apply to the mobile home parks? So the mobile home, in a mobile home park, the resident usually owns the mobile home itself, but then rents the space from the park owner. So is that multifamily, or is that considered residential in terms of how the ordinance would apply to them?
Thank you for that question. So as far as mobile home parks go, it depends on how they're enrolled in service with the garbage company. So some mobile home parks, every unit within the park is a customer with the garbage company. And then in different mobile home parks, they have the dumpsters or the bins, and they're all on one service. So in that regard, they'd work with the property manager of the mobile home park, and they would have the 12 bulky item pickups that they could utilize. If it's based off the customer, then they go back to the other amount.
So thank you, and that's regardless of how many units are in a park. Like some parks are really big and some parks are really small. But you're going to play it by ear, and then we may see you next year with an amendment. Is that what you're planning if it turns out you need to make changes?
We're going to definitely keep an eye on the success of the program and see if there's any adjustments that need to be made, good or bad, just to keep an eye on the pilot. And I do want to allow the garbage company to come up and talk if there's more details to this process that they'd like to add. But yeah, I hope I'm answering your questions.
You are. Thank you.
Thank you. Without any other questions, we'll move forward to public comment. City Clerk, are there any comments?
No, they're not.
Wow, this is a wild meeting. This is very exciting. Okay, well, at that point then, I'll move forward to council members. Do you have any deliberation? Councilmember Marks.
Well, I'm really very pleased with the whole process and the progress that's been made. I think the benefits to our city residents are really great, and it's going to make a real difference. You know, with all my years on the Integrated Waste Management Authority, I have to say that abandoned bulky items like couches and in some student areas near Cal Poly, in the past, in order to get rid of them, the residents there have actually burnt the couches. I don't know if you remember that. The fire department was finally able to convince them that that's arson and it's dangerous, and so they finally stopped. But, you know, from, say, a student's point of view, if they don't have a pickup truck, or maybe they don't even have a car, and they've got a really nasty couch that cannot even be sold, and they don't know what to do with it. So this is a wonderful kind of solution. And in general, I feel it's very worked out. It's worked out very well, and I'm going to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Vice Mayor.
I was just going to say that I think part of the reason that we have no public comment and not very many questions is because we've already talked about this in quite a bit of detail at a previous meeting. So, and I know that staff have done, in addition to our public meetings, have done a fair amount of outreach. And I asked some questions about, email addresses and communicating these things because I know that there is no foolproof way of communicating to customers and residents, and some people keep their emails current and some people don't, and some people look in their bills and some people don't, and some people look at social media and some people don't. So it really takes all types of communication, and I appreciate that you have worked so hard on that, and now that we have a good partner in San Luis Garbage, that together we're able to hopefully get the information out to those who need it as much as possible and in as many ways as possible. So thank you for doing this. I guess it may seem duplicative that we're doing this in such a big way twice, but that's why it's making it so smooth, I think, also. So looking forward to supporting the motion when it happens.
Thank you, and I think the public engagement also was part of that. I know you had a lot of that input for the conversations you all had together, so thank you. With that, I will entertain a motion. I don't see any other comments. Councilmember Marks.
I would like to move the staff recommendation to restate the city's existing solid waste recycling and organics franchise agreements with San Luis Garbage Company and amend section 8.04.070 of the municipal code.
Thank you, Councilmember Francis.
I will second.
Can we have roll call, please, City Clerk?
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Francis?
Yes.
Councilmember Boswell?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shorsman?
Yes.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes, and the motion passes 5-0. Thank you for making this a very smooth process. Now we welcome you back to the table for the next item.
All right. Hello again. Meg Bucking, just kidding. All right. So the next item before you tonight is consideration of adopting a resolution establishing 2025 integrated solid waste rates if there's not a majority protest received, a verified written protest for Proposition 218. Again, high-level background, it pertains to rate setting. So solid waste collection disposal services are critical per state law. The city's solid waste collection operations are contracted to Waste Connections, who does business as San Luis Garbage or SLG, and funded through the ratepayers, paid directly to the hauler. Rates historically are set by utilizing the rate setting process and methodology manual for integrated solid waste rates created in 1994, which predated noticing requirements set forth in Proposition 218 and allowed cost-based rate adjustments every 3 years with adjustments from the Consumer Price Index or CPI occurring in interim years. Cost-based rate adjustments require council approval and Proposition 218 noticing after thorough review of the garbage company's financial statements and are based off of a recovery of net costs. The last cost-based adjustment occurred in 2022 with a CPI adjustment in 2023 and 2024. In July of 2024, SLG submitted a cost-based rate adjustment application for 2025 using factors and the timeline provided in the existing 1994 rate manual. In addition to the proposed rate adjustment, the city's solid waste and recycling agreements expire in August. However, council just approved the introduction to restate the franchise agreements in the prior public hearing. So first, this business as usual timeline is the process that would be followed during a typical rate adjustment year as outlined in the 1994 manual. SLG would submit their application for a cost-based adjustment in 2024. Staff would review the rates, mail a Proposition 218 notice to ratepayers, conduct a public hearing, and if no majority protest and council approval, rates would go into effect on January 1st, 2025. Then separately from this process, the solid waste and recycling agreements were set to expire in August of 2025, leading to potential revisions and service enhancements that could require an additional rate adjustment, which would bring staff back to council in the summer of 2025 with potentially another recommendation to release a Prop 218 notice and set a public hearing date to adjust the rates again. However, staff and SLG identified a benefit to updating the 1994 rate manual to use to develop the 2025 rates and for future adjustments, as well as negotiate service enhancements into the franchise agreement, which was just recently introduced prior to this item, and any related rate changes would be incorporated into this proposed rate adjustment tonight. So the timeline and process was amended to do all of these negotiations at one time. SLG submitted their application for 2025 rates using the 1994 manual. A third-party waste management consultant, R3 Consultant Group, was hired to create a new methodology and use it to develop the 2025 rates. And staff and SLG negotiated a new combined solid waste and recycling and organics franchise agreement into one discarded materials franchise agreement, which includes service improvements for ratepayers. And R3 is joining us tonight via Zoom for any questions. After receiving direction at the January 21st City Council meeting, a 45-day Proposition 218 noticing process was conducted with a mailed notice to all customers with instructions on how to protest the rate increase. If no majority protest is received by the end of this public hearing process, then Council may consider the rates for adoption via resolution to become effective tomorrow, March 19th. The franchise agreement wouldn't become effective until Council has the option to adopt it at the second reading of the ordinance on April 1st, 2025. Next, we'll discuss the new rate setting methodology that is recommended to replace the 1994 manual. As previously mentioned, the current rate setting manual was developed in 1994 and is outdated, complex, and has resulted in rate spikes and does not consider Proposition 218 noticing timelines. When the City of SLO set out to update the manual, Waste Connections and 9 other agencies in San Luis Obispo County saw benefit in a new approach and wanted to be involved in the development of the new methodology. R3 Consulting Group was hired after a competitive bidding process to develop an on-call solid waste consultant list to facilitate the discussion with the 10 agencies and Waste Connections to develop a methodology that prioritizes rate stability, predictability, fairness, transparency, ease of administration, cost effectiveness, compliance with the noticing requirements of Prop 218, and is consistent with standard practices within the solid waste industry. After feedback was gathered from the agencies from an in-person workshop, R3 Consulting Group developed a methodology with key components that aim to develop future stable and transparent rate adjustments with these factors. A capped CPI adjustment. Rate adjustments during the interim years between the cost-based adjustments will be based on the garbage and trash CPI with a floor of 2% and a cap of 5%. Amounts under 2% or over 5% will carry forward to be applied or credited to future year adjustments. Updated depreciation lifespan for trucks from 7 to 10 years, which is the lifespan of modern solid waste collection vehicles. Profit allowance. The revised rate methodology includes an adjustment to the profit allowance on SLG's collection service compensation from 7 to 9% in 2025 to address SLG's request for an allowable profit closer to industry standard, which is typically 10 to 15%. In 2026 and thereafter, the profit allowance would increase to 10% of collection costs. As an overall percentage of rate revenue on collection and post-collection costs, SLG's profit allowance, which does not guarantee profitability, is 5% in 2025 and 5.4% in 2026. Adjustments to the limitation on corporate overhead. The 1994 rate-setting manual limited the amount of rate for corporate overhead, such as company leadership salaries. However, since then, SLG was acquired by Waste Connections, transferring it to a national company, and corporate overhead costs have broadened to fund legal, tax, payroll, human resources, engineering, compliance, IT, training, and recruiting programs. These services are pertinent and valuable in contributing to efficient and safe operations in San Luis Obispo. Currently, SLG incurs these costs, only a portion of which are compensated through the rate revenues. This change compensates SLG for these necessary services, but in an effort to protect the ratepayer, limits the amount and keeps the compensation to the garbage and trash CPI during interim years. Revenue balancing mechanism. Starting in 2027, rate adjustments will account for shortfalls or surpluses in SLG's actual revenues compared to projected revenues from prior years. Shortfalls or surpluses will be added or credited to future rate adjustments. The revenue balancing mechanism will help contribute to the rate stability factor. Historically, no balancing metric was in place, resulting in higher rate increases during cost-based adjustment years. Less frequent cost-based adjustments. Solid waste rates are adjusted annually with a cost-based adjustments every 3 years after a review of audited financial statements, a Proposition 218 noticing process, and council approval. Via the new methodology, cost-based adjustments would occur a maximum of every 5 years only if requested by SLG or the city. The first opportunity for a cost-based adjustment would be for the 2030 rate year. This means that instead of 2-year index-based adjustments, the city will get 4 consecutive years of such adjustments, meaning the next cost-based adjustments would be in 2030, and only if requested. Extraordinary adjustments. Consistent with the 1994 rate manual, extraordinary adjustments may still be considered during the interim CPI adjustment years due to changes in law affecting operations. We've seen this occur when Senate Bill 1383 for short-lived climate pollutants was passed, necessitating a change to rates and the franchise agreement. Timing of requested adjustments. The new methodology gives the city additional time to review SLG's cost-based adjustments after the 5-year minimum index-based years. SLG must notify the city of their intent to submit a cost-based adjustment in the January before rates would become effective, and submit their application in the spring, which would allow ample time for staff to review the application, introduce the rates to council, and hold a public hearing in the summer with Proposition 218 noticing before the January 1st rate adjustment. As discussed previously, this graph shows historic rate increases using the 1994 manual. The larger rate spikes seen in years 2016, 2019, and 2022 are the cost-based adjustment years. The interim years do not have any CPI caps, floors, or revenue balancing mechanisms in place to promote stability. 10 local agencies and Waste Connections met in person with R3 Consulting Group to discuss priorities in updating the rate-setting methodology. To date, all 10 agencies have received unanimous directions from their councils and boards to release the Proposition 218 noticing and/or held successful public hearings to adopt the 2025 rates with the new methodology. The City of San Luis Obispo is the remaining agency yet to formally introduce the recommendation for 2025 during a public hearing with the new methodology. The last segment being brought tonight is the City of San Luis Obispo's 2025 proposed rate adjustment incorporating the new methodology and the restated franchise agreement with the service enhancements. A key factor affecting the proposed rate adjustment is a recommended change to the payment structure for commercial customers who are subscribed to recycling bin service, also known as dumpsters. Currently in the city, recycling bin service is offered at no cost to commercial customers for collection once and twice a week, and SLG's cost to provide free recycling bin service to commercial customers is being offset by overall customer rates. To promote equity amongst the customers and to maintain consistency with other cities, the recommended rate structure will require all commercial recycling bin customers receiving service once or twice a week to start paying for recycling service at 25% of the trash rate, which is what commercial bin customers with more than twice weekly service are already paying. For reference, many other comparable cities charge their commercial recycling bin customers at 50% of the trash rate. No change would occur for ratepayers subscribed to recycling cart or wheeler service or commercial bin customers subscribed to service more than twice a week because they are already paying for the recycling services within their trash rate as a bundled rate. Here are some examples of the changes commercial bin customers might see for their recycling service. The impacts to commercial customers starting at $40.32 and $56.45 a month are for customers with a 1 cubic yard bin service once or twice a week. And the rates showed the 25% of the correlating trash bin rate. So this table shows the development of the negotiated 2025 rates. The original 2025 base rate adjustment request utilizing the 1994 rate setting manual with no new service enhancements such as no cost bulky item collections, no annual cart swap, or holiday tree collection was 9.29%. Staff then negotiated the new franchise agreement and made changes to the commercial bin recycling payment structure, which resulted in a reduction of the proposed rate increase to 6.26% effective January 1st. However, due to a delay in implementation to allow proper noticing and outreach to the community, the proposed rate increase is 7.98% and would become effective March 19th, 2025 after the public hearing. Even with the retroactive adjustment to offset the delay in effective date, the total amount paid by the ratepayer in the year will be the same if the new rates are adopted as proposed versus the slightly lower rate on January 1st. The proposed rate adjustment includes increases primarily in labor, fuel, and disposal costs at the Compogas anaerobic digestion facility and the Coal Canyon landfill. The disposal cost increase is a direct cost with no profit allowed to the garbage company. If adopted after the public hearing, the top table shows how monthly costs will change for residential customers, ranging from an increase in $1.18 a month for the 20-gallon trash cart to $5.63 a month for the 96-gallon cart for collection of their trash, recycling, and organics carts once a week. In the city of San Luis Obispo, the 32-gallon is the most common cart side, and those customers will see a $1.88 a month increase. The average commercial customer has a 3-yard bin serviced once weekly and would see an increase of $17.64 per month starting March 19th. This is not including any potential recycling bin increases if the customer is currently subscribed to once or twice a week recycling bin collection. A list of all the service levels and the proposed rate changes can be found in Attachment A of your agenda packet. These tables show the comparison of San Luis Obispo rates versus other jurisdictions for the most common 32-gallon residential cart size. The graph on the left compares pre-adjusted rates for jurisdictions within SLO and other neighboring counties, with San Luis Obispo rates on the low end. The graph on the right shows the city of SLO in comparison to the other agencies in SLO County being serviced by Waste Connections participating in the new rate methodology if all the proposed 2025 rate increases are implemented. City of SLO maintains lower pricing for the common 32-gallon cart size. So staff and the garbage company completed robust outreach efforts to customers about all of the recommended changes to the rates. So 2 informational emails were sent to commercial customers from the garbage company regarding the proposed increase and changes to bin recycling service. Information was included in commercial customers' monthly bill. We held 2 informational sessions for all customers to come and ask questions from the garbage company. There's frequently asked questions available on the city's website. We did outreach coordination with the Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown SLO Association. City Manager McDonald included information on the proposed changes during the City Manager's report at a January City Council meeting. Social media posts were scheduled on the city's and utility social media pages. A SLO business update was emailed to commercial customers with who have active business licenses in the city. As I mentioned, 2 informational sessions were held for customers with city and SLG staff in attendance to answer questions. Proposition 218 notices were mailed to all customers and are available on the garbage company's website in English and Spanish. The city emailed a news release. Staff participated in a KCBX interview, which was on the radio and on their website. Staff provided outreach at the city's booth at farmers markets. A legal ad was included in the New Times per the city's public hearing noticing requirements, and these items were also introduced at the January 21st, 2025 City Council meeting. Within the Proposition 218 notification process, customers were mailed Prop 218 notices 45 days prior to the public hearing. Protest guidelines were available in the notice on the city's webpage and on the garbage company's webpage in English and Spanish. A protest is valid when received in person or via mail from a property owner or an account holder responsible for solid waste service charges, is written and contains a signature, and only 1 protest is accepted per service address. So there are currently 16,412 active customers in the city of San Luis Obispo. So a successful protest would need a collection of 8,207 valid protests, which is 50% plus 1. If this introduction is approved by council, the 2025 Integrated Solid Waste Rate Resolution would allow new rates to become effective tomorrow, March 19th. The second reading of the proposed franchise agreement ordinance that was previously introduced and approved would be on the agenda for April 1st, before services go into effect. And with that, I would like to open it for any questions.
Thank you very much. That was a lot of information again, but really impressive. I will move it first to Councilmember Francis.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really grateful for all of the hard work that's gone into this. We'd received a couple of questions from members of the public. One regarding the profit margins being increased. And I was wondering if you could speak to, I think there was a misconception that this was a guaranteed profit. And I was hoping you could explain that a little bit.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to discuss the profit allowance. So with the recommended action tonight, it's to bring San Luis Garbage profit allowance to more industry standard with other haulers in the state. And I'd like to mention that with a profit allowance, it is not guaranteed profitability. So when the city and the garbage company set out to negotiate these rates, we negotiate, or SLG provides what it costs for them to perform the service, what their anticipated revenue is, and then that profit margin is included as the profit allowance piece. However, if the garbage company exceeds their projections for their costs, it reduces that profitability window. So the 9% that's being proposed for 2025 is not 9% guaranteed profit, and it's on the collection side. There are also post-collection operations, so it's the disposal fees that are at the Compa Slow anaerobic digestion facility and the recycling in the landfill. Those do not receive a profit. So when you are looking at the entirety of what profit can be made on, it is only a little over half of what the total pie is.
What happens in the scenario if costs are lower than they anticipate?
So that is, so that is an incentive for them to keep their costs lower than what's projected.
Okay, yep. And so they could then, in that scenario, potentially exceed the 9% profit?
Do we have Garth on the line to just confirm with that from R3? There he is.
Just trying to find my mute button. Hi, Councilmember Garth Schultz, principal with R3 Consulting Group. So yes, in the event that San Luis Garbage were to not incur expenses at the level forecasted by this study and this effort, yes, their profit achievement would be greater than the 9% on collection costs. The last 5 years worth of history would seem to indicate that that's an unlikelihood. It's really been more generally the other direction. So I think I also agree with Meg. There is an incentive here for them to keep costs low because of that. But I think that the chances for a meaningful, greater than 9% achievement of profitability is unlikely.
Thank you, Garth. I appreciate it. The second question that we received from the public was around container size and that there being a scarcity around the 20-gallon. As a 20-gallon user, I was worried hearing that. So I just wanted to get a little clarification on whether or not there is a scarcity issue with the 20-gallon and whether or not those are still going to be available to customers.
Yep, thank you for the opportunity to touch on that. So there was once a time that we believed, or the manufacturer of the containers did indicate that there would be a scarcity of the smaller container size. However, recently that has not been an issue, and the garbage company has been able to source that 20-gallon container size for customers. So if it is requested and customers are able to maintain low waste generation, it will be provided.
That's excellent news. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't see any mention of the rates for roll-offs. So if somebody is, say, going to be doing renovations or something and really needs to have a roll-off on the street to put all the extra material in, how does that work? is that just going to be exactly the same as what it was earlier, or do these rates affect that?
These rates do not affect roll-off. So the roll-off services are not a part of this exclusive franchise agreement.
Oh, okay.
This exclusive franchise agreement is only for residential and commercial services within the city. So if a customer does have a home renovation project and would like a roll-off container, it is a free market. And there are numerous different companies in the city that provide that service, and they are not subject to this rate increase.
Okay, and then in terms of the dumpsters in the mobile home parks again, how do these rates affect that? Is that considered residential or commercial?
So if a mobile home park is subscribed to the bin service, then they are being charged as a commercial customer by the garbage company. So they are subscribing to commercial rates. They are, in the city's eyes, a residential customer, and when we do report to the state of California, they are residential tenants and customers. However, as far as billing is concerned with the garbage company, if they have a dumpster, then they are susceptible to the dumpster rates.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Appreciate Councilmember Francis touching on the questions that we received. To just have a couple of follow-ups, and I don't know if our consultant wants to chime in on this or if you know the answer, but the discussion about profit margins and what's allowable versus what has been obtained in the past several years. What has been, just for the community's knowledge of this process, what has been the average profit margin over the last couple of years?
Hi, Councilmember. Again, Garth Schultz with R3. Over the last couple of years for the San Luis Garbage contract, so San Luis Garbage is one of 3 companies operating under the Waste Connections name in the county, has been certainly less than the current 7% of collection services. And I don't have the exact figure. In some years, it's been a loss with no profitability, and in others, it's been some profitability. For 2024, it was closer to the target profitability, but on average, I would say about half of what the existing rate methodology would have called for. So I think in the 3 to 4% range.
Okay, so if they do make that 9 or even more profitability, there's no ramifications as far as the franchise agreement is concerned. Bless you, Councilmember Marks.
I think what it does, in terms of the wholesale changes that you're looking at, the new franchise agreement, merging the 3 existing agreements, this lengthening of the time between cost-based rate adjustment years, the application of caps on the annual rate adjustment. So in order to achieve all of that, the company did, need to shore up its risks by requesting the industry standard profit range. So in terms of your question, how does it have ramifications on the franchise agreement? It's part of what made these overall sets of changes and the newly struck deal points possible.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I know there were lots of caps on things, and so just wanted to make sure I was understanding that wasn't one of the areas that there was a cap on. Also, my other question is a further clarification on the cart size. I can't remember if it was in your email or the agenda correspondence or in the staff report, but it was mentioned that the recommended cart size is the 64-gallon. But I think you also said that the most common is the 32, and then of course there's the option for the 20. So if San Luis Garbage is recommending the 64 and somebody calls them and says, we would like a 32 or a 20, is it just kind of, yes, you can have whichever cart you want, or is there like a qualification that someone has to meet? Because I know the ramification is that sometimes, as you mentioned, that people have too small of a bin and then there's overstuffing, or so how is it determined whether or not somebody can have the smaller bin?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So the specific question asked in agenda correspondence about bin size was relating to the recycling of the organics containers, and that it's recommended that a 64-gallon for those waste streams for customers because of the tendency to overfill with cardboard or tree trimmings, which causes overage and a sticking hazard for when the truck comes to collect those materials. So the larger container, because it doesn't incur any additional cost to a customer because costs are based off the trash size, is the recommendation. As far as the trash container size, the customer is able to choose whichever size that fits them and their family's needs.
Thank you for that clarification. And the trash bin size is what determines your rate, correct? Okay, thank you for all of that clarification.
Great questions. Well, at that, we don't have any additional questions right now. Let's see if we have any public comment. Is there any?
We have one public comment. That's for Rachel Whalen.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm Rachel Whalen, the Governmental Affairs Coordinator at the SLO Chamber of Commerce. I'm here today to convey the SLO Chamber's support for the city's proposed waste rate changes and updated franchise agreement. I want to start by thanking Meg Buckingham and Aaron Floyd for the time, effort, and thoughtful negotiation that has gone into these updates. We believe that waste education is key to ensuring residents and businesses understand and actively participate in responsible waste management. We encourage the city to continue and expand efforts to improve community waste education to combat disinformation and promote sustainable practices. For example, providing guidance on how to properly assess whether bulky items can be reused or refurbished before being sent to the landfill aligns with sustainability goals and helps reduce unnecessary waste. By equipping the community with the right information, we can collectively minimize what goes to the landfill and make the most of our resources. Regarding the retroactive payment adjustments for commercial recycling bin rates from January 1st, we recommend spreading out this payment to help minimize financial burden on businesses. And to clarify, that recommendation is specifically for the commercial bin recycling fees. We also encourage the city to classify recycling bins at apartment complexes as residential rather than commercial. We recognize the city's efforts to create a fair and efficient recycling collection system, and we believe this adjustment would help mitigate additional costs to housing, supporting broader affordability and housing efforts. Additionally, to maximize efficiency in waste collection, we encourage policies that promote the use of larger recycling bins at apartment complexes rather than multiple individual carts chosen solely for affordability reasons. Lastly, we want to acknowledge the lack of complaints that the city has received regarding these changes and how that is a testament to the city's diligent efforts in negotiating and communicating these updates. We greatly appreciate the city's negotiation efforts and the benefits these agreements provide the community. The SLO Chamber remains committed to working alongside the city and our business community to promote policies that foster a thriving, sustainable, and well-managed community. We look forward to continued collaboration as these updates are implemented. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At one point, there was a conversation around the multifamily housing, residential versus commercial. Do you mind just sharing why it's done the way it is?
I can give a stab, but I'd love Jeff Claren to come up and give a little more clarification. My understanding is that it is the because of the dumpster, the dumpster and that being the service level, that puts it into the commercial bracket as far as their billing goes, but that's the only reason.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Jeff Claren. I'm the district manager here at San Luis Garbage. And the difference between multifamily and residential, it's really, they're all residential in consideration, but just like what Meg said, she did a great job of talking about what's a commercial bin rate versus a residential cart rate in terms of our billing language, but they're still considered residential. And in a lot of times, especially for mobile home parks, they have the choice of the option whether to, can they want to be individually billed as carts as your just like a residential area, or they may want to use the commercial service with the bin service and have consolidation where they can actually do a lot of sharing. So it's going to be on the option side of things. And then on the multifamily, there is something that I believe, Garth, it's 4 or more that the state said is considered multifamily. So anything more than that is considered multifamily as well.
Great, thank you. I think Councilmember Francis has a question.
Sure.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on that. So, for example, I live next to a multifamily area where there's a large dumpster, but then they have the small individual bins for recycling. Is that a choice that's made by the management of the multifamily unit to do the individual bins? And does that then come in at the residential rate versus the commercial rate for the smaller bins?
Well, a lot of the cart rates are there. It's depending on spacing, and it's actually part of the bundled rate, what was brought up earlier. They also have the choice to do a dumpster for recycling. However, for organics, it's just the carts, and it's usually 64 gallons carts.
So the recycling rate at the multifamily unit, if they have a dumpster, would come in at the commercial rate, or it would come in at the residential rate?
As a bin or dumpster is only going to come at 25% of what the trash rate is. Okay. If they have a cart service, which is your 96 or 64, would be included as part of the service. You get 1 free.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. I did have some answers if you needed a little bit more on those business units in terms of profit margins, if you guys actually need those.
We would love that, actually.
Okay, so actually it was actually part of Garth's report. San Luis Garbage in 2018, it was negative 13.84. 2019 is negative 16.84. 2020, negative 9.66. 21, negative 3.41. In 22 is when we did the finally bigger rate increase. We got 12.47. 2023 is 6.30. 2024 is negative 0.64, and this projected in 2025 without the rate increase would be negative 6.62. So if you look at it, we haven't had to achieve that 7% profit margin just on the allowable costs. And what Meg said earlier, with this new rate methodology manual, we'll be able to do some revenue balancing, and hopefully we can achieve what we're going to be going for as the 9% over on allowable. And again, it's going to be on an overall basis. If you include our landfill fees or collection fees, it's going to be about 5% what we're going to be making in the company. So for every dollar every $100 we spend, we're going to make $5, and that's good our overall. So
thank you. That's helpful. Mr. Floyd?
For reference, that is table 3 on packet page 539.
539?
Yes, 539.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much, Jeff. Well, with that, this gets into the unique aspect of today being a public hearing. So now that we've done the public comment, I'd like to ask if there's anyone in the room that would like to submit a protest letter on this item if you haven't turned one in yet. Okay. City Clerk, did you receive any protest letters?
Mayor Stewart and members of the council, since the release of the Prop 218 notices, the city received 19 written protests that were validated in advance of tonight's meeting, and as you indicated, we received none tonight. So based on that percentage, the percentage needed, this does not constitute a legally sufficient protest for solid waste rates.
Thank you very much. So with that, we come back to the normal process of deliberations and motion. I just want to say first that while this is going very smooth and there's a lot of conversation and it's very clearly laid out and our questions are for clarification, I definitely want to say, just in case anyone is watching at home, I don't take rates lightly, increasing rates lightly, and I know that my colleagues don't as well. And also I have to say that we've seen rates increase, whether it's eggs, gas, and now trash, waste. So one of the things is that nothing is getting cheaper, unfortunately, and we have to make sure that everyone covers their costs. So I do think about that as we're looking at making these decisions today. With that, I also really appreciate the amount of public engagement that's happened from SLG, from the city, and truly from the chamber and commercial business in the community, because when I first saw this, I thought, how is that going to be for the commercial businesses who haven't paid for this in the past? So I really appreciate that conversation and kind of the compromises that we've come to. So I have to say, with a rate increasing and actually receiving service enhancements, that's really the best of both worlds in this moment. I also want to make sure that we, for anyone that is curious and wants to go back about around 6:30, there was a very clear explanation of the rate methodology, and in case anyone's wanting to come back to that later, but that we are always looking at how do we help people who have low incomes. And so we do have programs that are for people who have discounted rate programs for people who do have low incomes. And I also really appreciate the increased transparency that we've created through this process. So for me, I will go ahead and support this going forward. Vice Mayor Shorsman.
Yeah, you just said almost everything that I was going to say. I just, want to just reemphasize that it's not a light decision when we have to consider the expanded costs for different things. I know that we will have more of these. There have been several since I've been on council already, and not necessarily always for waste rates, but as you mentioned, Mayor, the cost of everything is going up, and it impacts all of us who live in the city. And so I think the thing that kind of makes this a little bit more palatable for me is the fact that we are getting some new benefits and the opportunity to help some more people that are really struggling in our community with these costs, and hopefully try to keep their heads above water just a little bit. And so often right now we're getting increased costs with no increased benefits, and at least in this situation we are getting some new benefits, and appreciate all of the extra information from San Luis Garbage about the profit question, because I think as public servants representing our community, we have to look out for those in our community and where the money's going. So the explanation of what that really means in the end for the company, I think, is illuminating, and I appreciate that.
Councilmember Boswell.
Thank you. Yes, I echo my fellow council members' comments. For me, there's two things that are really great coming out of this. One is the customer assistance program, which provides the 20% discount. This is a new program. So in effect, for qualifying customers, if I've done the math right, they'll actually see lower rates for some period of time. So, that's important, I think, to consider. And then, I did some back of the envelope on if you just use the bulky item once or twice a year, or once every few years, you're coming out far ahead compared to what it would cost you to have somebody to haul the item off or to take it to the landfill yourself, which can be quite expensive. So I think we are, even though the cost is going up, we're getting a very important community-wide benefit, particularly for our low-income residents. And I think for most customers, they'll see some real value out of a couple of these additional items. So I'll be supporting the motion tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. Well, Councilmember Boswell stole my line, so I agree with him. I also just want to compliment staff for the really diligent and thorough and sensitive negotiations that went on, and also compliment San Luis Garbage for understanding how important it is to our community to handle solid waste in a way that's responsible to the environment. It's very, very important, I'd say, as a kind of core value for our community. So I also will be supporting the measure tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Francis.
Yeah, thank you to you all for your comments. I agree with every single thing that's been set up here tonight. So I will go ahead with moving to approve staff recommendation here.
Thank you so much. Is there a second? Vice Mayor Shorsman.
I'll second.
Can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Francis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shorsman?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Boswell?
Yes.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes, the motion passes 5-0. Sorry, her light was blinking and we're trying to figure it out. Thank you so much. That was a lot to go through, but we really appreciate it, and a lot to go through up until today as well. So thank you, and thank you to everyone out in the audience. Well, with that, this is a wildly quick meeting, almost as quick as Councilmember Shorsman did, I think, a year ago. Well, it's now the time for liaison and communication reports. So a little wrap up. Some days I feel like I've said this information over and over again, and maybe I haven't here. So first and foremost, I want to make sure that I share thanks to everyone at the Cal Cities on the regional side. We had an election, so we have our second vice president is Grover Beach City Council Member Clint Wyrick, and we also had Congressman Salud Carbajal and Assemblymember Greg Hart come and give us some updates. So that was a really interesting dinner meeting on Friday. Also on Wednesday, I had the SLOCOG/RTA meeting, and there is quite a bit of questioning happening around the transportation funding and what's happening from federal funding. But in that, we do have the short range transit plan that we are looking at. We do have additional jobs open still for drivers. We do have additional routes they're looking at for making it smoother to get around the city of SLO, including with Cal Poly. So lots of interesting things, and we still have electric buses coming, but they are even more backed up than they were before. So we're still trucking along at getting some additional electric buses, which will be good. Also for the 3CE, we didn't have a meeting, but I do want to say we have our open house on Wednesday, the 19th. So we have a new office building in, in San Luis Obispo, and I'm looking forward to going to that open house tomorrow, and hopefully you all will be able to attend.
1026 Palm.
1026 Palm, that's where the office is. There we go. And on kind of some random mayor things, I was so pleased to finally have the last of the advisory body interviews. Out of 103 people that we interviewed, we have finished all of the interviews. We'll be bringing back the recommendations on the 1st, and really excited about that. Was able to attend or participate in a Women in Business panel, and that was at Cal Poly, held by the Women in Business Cal Poly Club, and that was on Friday. Then we also had the International Women's Day on March 8th. I got to be one of the speakers along with Maxine Kozler-Koven from Mission Community Services Corporation. She runs the Small Business Administration Center / Women's Business Center in town, and the topic was Accelerate Action. So we really looked at a lot of hopeful inspiration. We looked at amazing women in the past, present, and future. And I really wanted to thank Vice Mayor Shorsman for attending as well. With that, Councilmember Francis.
Yeah, thank you. Also had a lovely time at the Channel Counties Division, the League of California Cities. It was really great to hear from our local electeds on the impacts of federal cuts on local municipalities. Today, I had the honor of hanging out with the CapSLO folks at our strategic visioning meeting, which included folks from the city, board members, staff, with the goal of creating a strategic plan for homelessness services. It was really exciting to really think big and creative about how we can better serve those members of our community. And then last Thursday, we had a Nacimiento Commission meeting which was great for approving some additional grant funds and also for approving a letter that was submitted in opposition to the Shandon-San Juan Water District application attempt to appropriate water in Nacimiento. So we had agreement there, which was a positive move forward. And that's it for now.
Great, thank you. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, not a lot of advisory liaison meetings in the recent past, but tomorrow, unfortunately, I will not be able to make the 3CE open house because we have a 4-hour strategic planning session for the Homeless Services Oversight Council. That is a public meeting from 1 to 5 at the Vets Hall for anybody who wants to understand really what we've been doing over the last few years in regard to meeting the goals and objectives in the 5-year homelessness strategic plan. And then we will also do some sort of a listening session and a version of a DOT exercise, trying to get community input on, with limited funding, what we should be prioritizing in the next couple of years. So there'll be some data and information out of our relatively new HMIS system to show what our metrics have been over the last few years, as well as an analysis of what we anticipate future funding to be to go along with a prioritization process. So it'll be more of a listening session than decisions being made, but it should be a good opportunity for people to weigh in on what they think the priorities should be the next few years. I also, in addition to the Channel County's dinner and Channel City's dinner and International Women's Day that were already mentioned over the last couple of weeks, had the opportunity to attend the SLO Chamber Housing Summit last Thursday in the afternoon at the Embassy Suites, and very good, descriptive, interesting panel discussion and a visit from former Senator Tony Atkins to talk about housing policy at the state level. So a good event, and always good to do that once a year. So it's an annual event. So hopefully we'll be able to see that next year as well.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Boswell.
Thank you. Just one meeting to report on. On March 10th, I attended the meeting of the San Luis Obispo Climate Coalition. Introduced myself as the new liaison. I think I told a couple of jokes. No. Chris Reed, our sustainability manager, gave a report and update on the good work of the city on implementation of the Climate Action Plan and the Lead by Example Plan. And then we had a presentation on rate setting by the PUC. I think our rate setting is complicated. That's some complicated rate setting, and particularly the recent changes in solar incentive programs and how that's impacted rooftop solar installation in California. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. Yeah, well, the Air Pollution Control District, the recruitment has for a new executive director because Gary Willie is retiring. The recruitment is closed, and we're setting aside the whole day of March 31st for interviews. There are at least 8 really good candidates, so there's that happening. I attended the San Luis Obispo rep, the SLO rep donors reception on the 16th, and the city got praised several different times by several different people for our participation, the challenge grant that we have issued to them. They have raised $19 million already, and they've got 2.1 million more to raise by the end of the year. So they're going full steam ahead. It was very uplifting occasion. In terms of the Integrated Waste Management Authority, the search for the new executive director there opened on the 12th, and during the meeting we among other things, gave out a technical assistance grant in the amount of $10,000 to Mr. Turtle. And you may not have heard of Mr. Turtle. You may have. Mr. Turtle is a startup by some Cal Poly students who've graduated. And it basically is a stand that dispenses things like laundry detergent, liquid detergent, and hand washing liquid that you have to bring your own containers to. So the hope is, and the plan is to eliminate plastic. And they're very gung-ho, and they're placing these, it's like a kiosk, they're placing in laundromats all over the whole county. And there's one right there on California Avenue if anybody wants to go look. So that's been fun. I wanted to also just tell people that on the 29th, CompoGas is giving away free organic compost from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at 4300 Old Santa Fe Road, which is the location of the biodigester. So all of the organic waste that everyone is putting into these green bins goes to the biodigester and gets turned into compost. And once a year, they give it away free. It's part of their obligation to Cal Recycle. So if you want to get some free compost, just go ahead and pull on up. I understand that it is during spring break, so talk to your neighbors if they can get some for you if you're not going to be around. I also did attend the Housing Summit. It was very interesting. Really from the point of view, the whole thing was from the point of view of the real estate community and the development community, the communities that make a lot of money from the housing market. So there was a little bit of emphasis on affordable housing, but not enough for me. However, I will say that the panel of staff from various cities and the county, we were well represented by Timmy Tway, and I've heard from 2 different people that she's a rock star. They really liked the way that she performed during the Housing Summit. Going back to the Cal Cities Channel Counties chapter, I do want to say that Salud Carbajal requested that all of the jurisdictions keep a list of all of the impacts to our not just to our jurisdiction, not just to our city operation, but also to our community. And so I've been told that Natalie Harnett in our organization is actually the one who's keeping the list. And so I'd like to encourage anyone who's a resident or a business, nonprofit in the county, in the city rather, to go ahead and let us know. You can email council and we'll get the word to the right person. Let us know what the actual financial impact is as things play out. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, with that, we're wrapping up the day at 7:20 p.m. This is amazing. I am excited, though, to see you all on April 1st. And yes, no, it is not April Fool's Day. We actually have quite a full agenda for that day already planned. In addition to that, we will all start at 4 o'clock with a closed session, and then we will say goodbye and thank you to our members of our advisory bodies and do a little recognition for them. And then we'll come back and have a meeting at 5:30. So see you then. Thank you and good night.